Next witness, please.
It's the same witness, Your Honor, from lunch. I think she's apologized. Swing it now.
Mr. Sewell, right?
Yes, Your Honor. I may approach again, Your Honor.
May.
I'll show you a box, ma'am.
Sure.
You recognize that box.
Yes, I do.
And what is inside that box?
These are additional items that were collected from the victim.
And what items were collected?
In this box, there's a hat, socks, underwear, and a pair of sweatpants, as well as the shirt that was mounted for court that you saw previously.
You perform any testing on this stuff?
Yes, I did.
In the box? Okay. What testing did you do?
I did a general description and tested representative reddish-brown stains from the items.
I'm sorry,
And,
what was the last part?
Tested representative reddish-brown stain from the items.
All right, let's start with outerwear. You recognize that item?
Yes, this is item number 27. It's a pair of sweatpants.
And did you test those for blood?
Yes, I believe I did. I tested a, yes, I did. I tested a representative reddish-brown stain for the presence of blood.
And was it positive?
Yes, it was.
I'd ask that this be marked as the next exhibit.
Please mark it.
Sweatpants are on 55. 55 sweatpants.
Show you another brown paper bag to you.
Yes.
What is inside there?
It's a hat, item number 23.
Did you test that for the presence of blood?
Yes, I believe I did. Yes, I did.
Okay, and what was the result?
Positive.
And are those your initials there?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I'd ask that this be marked as the next exhibit.
Please.
56.
This bag, I'll check.
56. Item 56, Your Honor's hat, so marked.
Did you make any other observations of this as well?
Just did a general examination of the hat.
Okay, were there any holes in the hat?
No, they were not.
Underwear and socks,
Yes.
and some other underwear, is that right?
Item number 25 is socks, correct? And item number, sorry. Yes, this is underwear, item number 28.
I'd ask that those be marked as the next exhibit.
Without objection, please mark them.
Alright, so 57 is what's inside.
Underwear?
Underwear 57, Your Honor.
58 would be socks.
And 58 is socks, and that item is so marked. 58.
All right, I'm going to show you a box here. Sorry. What is that box?
This contains items number 21, 22, and 24, which are items number 21 is a pair of sneakers, item 22 is a sweatshirt, and item number 24 is a pair of jeans.
Did you test any of these items for blood?
Yes, I did.
And what were your results?
Positive.
All three items.
Let me just refer to my notes. That is correct.
Are you just going to take them out?
Yes, sir. You can mark the whole box if you like.
Let me suggest, the things that are not going to be published, but just to give some kind of completeness, any objection is simply marking the boxes as such.
I'm not sure what's on the box, but it's subject to any sort of redaction if necessary. I don't mind.
Well, there's three bags of, as I understand it, the underwear, socks, and
surveillance.
And this is, I'll show it to Mr. Karen, but this is the sneakers, sweatshirt, and jeans yard.
I don't see anything offhand that concerns me. Thank you.
I'm gonna take an item out of that box, and put this in line 57, is that? What is that item?
Item number 27, which is a sweatshirt.
Did you make any other observations with this other than the examination to see if it was blood or not?
I did a general description, and there is a hole in the hood area.
I'd asked that we could publish this particular item here.
May?
And just for the record, it's clear the hood area is the bottom right-hand side of that item?
Yes.
Now, there were some items submitted to you from the Boston Police Department. Is that correct, for examination?
That is correct.
One would just show you. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what item number is that?
Item number 30.
Okay, and what is this?
It is a hooded zip-up sweatshirt.
Okay, and what did you do to examine that piece of evidence?
I did a general examination as well as collected swabs for wear DNA.
Do you have any results of those tests?
They were not submitted to the DNA unit.
I'd ask that be marked Debene, Your Honor, as the next exhibit.
Which one?
The hooded jacket, Your Honor.
Any objection?
Hooded jacket?
Now I'm going to show you an item here as well. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, this is a black jacket, item number 29.
Okay. There's a tag on this. Do you recognize that tag?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And did you examine this item?
Yes, I did.
What did you do with this item?
I did a general description as well as collect swabs for wear DNA, as well as collect gunshot residue stubs from the both cuff areas of the jacket.
Okay. And once you tested or took stubs for gunshot residue testing, where did those stubs go?
They went to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory for testing.
Yes. Would this be marked as the next exhibit? Debene?
Why did they?
Well, I would move to admit it, but I think Mr.
I'm
Carroll.
requesting committed to Bene, Your Honor.
All right, why don't we, here's, what I'm gonna do is admit these exhibits subject to reservation, sometimes we strike them as admitted. So, you may mark it.
Yes.
Mark it as an exhibit,
Yes,
subject to striking.
Black jacket, you want a 61.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just if I may just have a brief moment to make sure I've gone through everything. Now, ma'am, with regards to exhibit number 61, which is that black jacket that we just talked about,
Yeah.
you stubbed that for potential further testing on gunshot residue?
I did.
What did you do with those stubs?
They were packaged separately and for pickup from the detective for transport to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
If you know, did they get to the crime lab?
Yes, they were picked up from our crime laboratory for transport to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
Is that the extent of the items that you tested in this case?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Carroll?
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How many items did you test for the presence of gunshot residue?
With 2 items, the stubs were collected from the cuff areas. Well, the gloves, I'm sorry, the gloves as well as the jacket, so 2 items total.
And do you have any idea where those 2 items came from?
The gloves were submitted to me from, I believe, at B2. They were collected at District B2. And
You don't know where the police department actually sees those gloves, right?
I believe it was District 2.
What you believe, do you know?
District B2.
That's where you got it from.
The gloves, yes, somebody submitted them.
How about the jacket that you tested for gunshot residue?
The jacket was collected from a storage area.
Were you present for that, or are you just told that?
I was not present for the collection of that jacket.
You weren't present at the collection of the gloves either, correct?
That's correct.
But what you're telling the jury is just what you've been told, correct?
They were submitted to me. I had that information, but I was not present when either of those items were collected.
Now, item number 61, exhibit 61, this black jacket that you said that you tested, correct?
Yes, item number 29?
I'm doing it by the exhibit number, I don't know the title, 29.
Sorry.
This was the last item that Mr. Bradley just showed you, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, you said you did a general description of it, correct?
Yes.
And you checked for, or you collected it for wear DNA, correct?
That's correct.
And you did some gunshot residue collection, correct?
Correct.
Do you make the decision about what you test for, or does somebody make a request about what you test for?
Based on the circumstances of the case and a discussion with the investigators of the case, if I need more information, but usually I can make that determination as well.
Did you or the people that you talked to ever test the sleeve of that black jacket for gunshot residue?
The stubs were collected from both cuff areas of the jacket.
Now, there was another item that Mr. Bradley showed you that you said was a sweatshirt with a hood, correct? Do you remember that?
Item number 30, the item before the jacket?
Right.
Yes.
And did you test that for gunshot residue?
I did not.
When you test for, there are 2 different things you may be testing for the presence of gunshot residue for, is that correct? Well, you tested these clothes for gunshot residue, or collected samples from these clothes to see if there's gunshot residue on the clothes.
Correct.
And your assumption when you did that was because you assumed that these clothes came from somebody who was suspected of committing a crime, correct?
It was requested that stubs be collected from the items, and we typically will collect stubs from the outermost garment.
Another way to that you can use gunshot residue is to try to detect the distance from which someone has been shot, correct?
That could be done, yes, that's correct.
And did you perform that test on the black hooded sweatshirt that had the hole, the penetrating hole?
No, distance determination was not performed in this case.
You didn't even bother to collect gunshot residue from that item, is that correct?
It's not typically something that we would do at the lab, is to collect a gunshot residue stub from something that may be a bullet hole, because if it's a bullet hole, it will have gunshot residue on it, so it won't really.
Sometimes it's important to know what distance the gun was fired from, correct?
The distance determination is a chemical test. We did not perform it in this case.
In order to do the chemical test, you have to do the gunshot residue collection, correct?
No, it's simply, I do not perform the testing. It's a chemical test. We don't use the stubs, no. I think I have it here too.
Is this the type of stub that you used on collect for gunshot residue?
Yes, it is.
And what is scanning with an electron microscope stub?
That is another word for this stub. So that what they do is they use a scanning electron microscope to analyze the sticky portion of the stub to look for the particles of gunshot residue.
Now, there's certain protocols that one expects to be used in the collection of, before one collects gunshot residue, about timing, for instance, how quickly you want to collect the potential gunshot residue after potential firing of a firearm?
There are time restraints if we collect it from an individual's hands. However, with clothing, there is no time restraints on it.
If the clothing has been in touch with other items, there's possible cross-contamination.
It could be possible.
And so if you find gunshot residue on an item, and you don't know where that item has been for a period of time, you don't know whether if you're collecting something that's actually related to the case or just some sort of contamination, do you?
I can't, there's no indication when I collect it if I know when it was deposited there.
Now, this black jacket that you, Exhibit 61, you said gunshot residue, and did you have any idea whether it ever tested did you ever test it to see if there was gunshot residue present?
I only do the collection and then it goes to the state police.
And you did the wear DNA, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the general description, did you check it for the presence of blood?
Yes, in general description, we do check every item. When we do our general description, we are aware to be looking for any blood, any trace evidence that's on the item.
And on this black jacket that you said is Exhibit 61, did you find the presence of any blood?
I did not.
And the pair of gloves that you tested, I believe that was, sorry. Mr. Bradley showed you Exhibit 36, correct? Pair of gloves?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you analyze, did you review those gloves for the presence of blood?
Yes, I did.
And your experience as a criminalist at the Boston Crime Lab suggests to you that if a gloved hand is someplace near where the shot is fired and bullet strikes, there might be blood splatter, correct?
It could be possible, yes.
You didn't find any blood on that pair of gloves?
No, I did not.
And you didn't find any blood splatter evidence on that black jacket either?
I did not. Dave, in this box? No. In this box? Sorry. Okay.
Mr. Bradley, I think we may have it here.
Oh, yes.
You're welcome.
Show what's been previously marked Exhibit 87 in this case. Have you ever seen this item before?
Yes, I have.
When did you see this item?
This is item number 2. I had examined it in the lab.
And what did you examine it for?
Did a general exam of the item as well. When we do that general exam, we're looking at for any trace evidence, any biological materials as well.
And did you test it in any way for gunshot residue?
I did not test this item for gunshot residue.
And did you test it for wearer's DNA?
No, not this item.
Did you test it for blood? Look for blood in any way, shape, or form?
I did look for blood, however, there was no blood on
And
this
there wasn't
item.
anything on that coat that suggested to you the presence of any thing to be further analyzed, is that right?
Correct.
Now, for the purposes of this questioning, if an item had gunshot residue on it, and that item was then stored in the pockets of this coat, transfer the gunshot residue from that item to the coat would be within what you might anticipate?
It could be possible.
And you didn't test anything in this coat?
No, I did not.
Gunshot residue, correct?
That's correct.
And you, when you were swabbing Exhibit 61 for wear DNA,
Yes.
you checked the collar area, is that right?
Yes, typically we do the interior collar area as well as the interior cuff area.
And the interior cuff area?
Yes.
On both arms, correct?
Yes.
And you sent that off to the state police lab?
The stubs, yes, got sent to the state police lab.
In the protocols that one has in mind when one is collecting, especially when you're collecting from, well, you didn't get take any steps from Mr. Harrison, did you?
No, I did not.
Gunshot residue or anything else?
I did not.
And one of the things you want to, you hope is that criminalists that the police have done to make sure to avoid any cross-contamination, correct?
They are trained in collection of evidence and to prevent it.
So you want to have the material into your hands as quickly as possible, right? Like 4 hours if it's been taken from you want the collection within 4 hours of possible firing a gun, correct?
If it's on an individual's hand,
On
yes.
individual's hands, right?
Yes.
And you want to have, make sure that there's no contamination once the person sort of, if the person being transported, you want to make sure there's no contamination while they're being transported in a police car, for instance, right?
We try to prevent that, yes.
And you want to make sure that it doesn't come in contact with any other sort of firearm or ammunition between the time of the gunshot explosion and the time that this stuffing is done, correct?
Again, we try to prevent it, yes.
And when you're collecting from a person, you want to make, if at all possible, you want to make sure you get the stuffing done before they're even transported, correct?
It would be best practice to collect at, for example, at a crime scene.
Before they're put in any sort of police vehicle, for instance.
Yes, that would be best practice.
And if you are being put into a police vehicle, and if you haven't collected the sample, there's a way, there's a way to sort of bag the person's hands to make sure there isn't any contamination.
Yes, that could be done, yes.
One of the other ways of possible contamination is when you do the collection, one of the protocols is make sure that you haven't recently fired a firearm, correct?
That's correct. That's why we collect it, because we don't carry firearms with civilians. So that is why we respond to collect gunshot residue to avoid contamination.
And you would want the same thing to happen with any item of clothing. make sure the people who handle it haven't recently fired a firearm, correct?
True, yes.
Because that's a possible source of contamination.
Yes, we try to, to try to avoid contamination.
Was a black and red shirt submitted to you for any sort of examination?
Let me just check my notes. No.
No black and red shirt.
I examined the items that we viewed here.
Other than these items, you didn't examine any other items that were collected?
The only other thing was a bloodstain collection kit, which contained one swab with a reddish brown stain on it, but that's all.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Brett?
Ma'am, you said that the Boston Police Department is trained to collect evidence of clothing.
Yes.
Why are the items in a paper bag?
So when they collect items in, as they're collecting items, they typically have gloves on their hands as well to prevent any contamination, and they place them in bags and seal them.
And the bags, the paper bags, prevent them from being contaminated with things like gunshot residue.
Yes, items were placed in individual paper bags, yes.
Mr. Carroll has talked a lot about 4 hours and testing on hands. Does that rule apply to clothing?
No, it does not.
So if the clothing was tested later on outside of the 4-hour window, that wouldn't be a violation of the policy of the crime lab?
Correct. Clothing does not have a time constraint.
Thank you.
Carol, very quickly.
Do you know of the person who collected the gloves in this case, for instance, that you examined? Do you know of the person who collected those gloves on, had prophylactic gloves on when they collected the gloves?
I was not there at the time of collection, however, they are trained to.
But you don't know?
I was not there, no.
And the black jacket that you swabbed for DNA and for gunshot residue, do you know if the person who collected that had gloves on or not at the time it was collected?
I was not there at the time.
And you don't know that the person who put it into the paper bag had gloves on or not?
I was not there at the time.
Either one of those items.
I was not there at the time of
Thank you.
collection.
Your excuse, thank you very much. While testifying, announce your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. This time the Commonwealth Constitution is called Lillian O'Flaherty.
I'm sorry?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to this court and the jury in the issue between the Commonwealth and the defendant shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do.
Good afternoon. Please.
Thank you. Could you please introduce yourself to His Honor and the members of the jury, spelling your last name for the record?
Sure. My name is Lillian O'Flaherty, O''Flaherty.
Sorry, could you, my hearing is not very good, I'm not following you, I just would, if you could just keep your voice up, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
What do you do for work?
Right now, I work in Boston Public Schools as a coach for new teachers.
And how long have you worked for the Boston Public Schools for?
6 years.
Prior to you being a coach for teachers, what did you do?
I was a classroom teacher.
At some point during the time that you worked for the Boston Public Schools, did you work for the English high school?
Yes.
And what was your job title at the English high school?
I was a 10th grade English teacher.
Did you work there during the school year of 2014 going into the year 2015?
Yes.
During that time, did you meet a gentleman by the name of Shaun Harrison?
Yes.
You see him in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Please point to him and describe an article of clothing he's wearing.
He's sitting right there. He's wearing a gray button-down shirt.
And may the record reflect that she's identified the defendant?
Will.
Turning your attention to, I'm sorry, take a step back. What was Mr. Harrison's job title at the time?
I believe he was a dean. That was his title.
And what was his job responsibilities as far as you knew?
As far as I understood them, he was assigned to the third floor to sort of monitor that floor, respond to behavioral incidents. I also was aware that he was working with a group of boys as a mentor in a mentor role.
Turning your attention to March 3rd of 2015, were you working that day, ma'am?
Yes,
In what capacity were you working? What was your job that day?
10th grade English teacher.
Okay. And what happens in the morning at around 9:30?
At about 9:30, third period was starting, and my classroom was on the corner of the third floor hallway, which had windows facing out into the hallway. I noticed that my student, Luis Rodriguez, was walking down the hallway away from class, so I went out into the hallway to just kind of pull him back into class. And at that point, I noticed another student run up behind him and push him into the boys' bathroom, and it looked aggressive, like there might be a fight starting, so I went to call for support.
And who did you call?
There's a button in the classrooms that you press, which goes to the main office, and the secretary sends a call out over the radio to alert deans or administrators that someone needs support.
What did you do next once you hit that button?
After I hit the button, I went back out into the hallway, and I did not see the students in the hallway, so I walked toward the bathroom, and I attempted to open the bathroom door, which was being blocked somehow, but I was able to get into the bathroom.
And what did you see once you got into the bathroom?
I saw two students fighting. Luis Rodriguez was one of them, and other boys standing around the fight filming. One was filming it.
I'm going to show you, it's been previously marked, I believe it's exhibit number 49 on the screen in front of you. Do you recognize that area?
Yes,
And what is that area?
that is the third floor hallway outside the boys' bathroom.
And I'm going to pause exhibit number 47 at, I believe that is 9:22 and 12 seconds. Do you recognize that individual there in the center of the screen?
Yes,
Who is that?
that's Luis Rodriguez.
You recognize, I'm going to stop it again at 9:22 and 16 seconds. Do you recognize that student there with the backpack that just hit Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, that's Laudi Arias.
I'm going to stop it at 9:22 and 26 seconds here. I'm going to ask you to identify that person there. There's a break between the students and you were, there was somebody jogging. Who was that person?
That's me.
And where are you heading at this point?
I was headed to the nearest classroom to push the button for support.
The third floor here, is that in a square?
Yes,
Okay, in the center area where the bathrooms are, that's the inner portion?
yes,
Okay, and the outer portion here would be where windows are?
yes.
Stop it at 9:23 and 32 seconds. That door is being opened. Who's opening that door?
That's me opening the door.
You have a little bit of trouble getting that door open at first?
Yes.
Stop at 9:23 and 35 seconds. Do you recognize that person is coming in the bathroom
Ye-
behind you?
Yes.
Who was that?
That's Shaun Harrison.
Can you describe what you saw once you got inside the bathroom?
When I entered the bathroom, I saw Loudy and Lewis engaged in a fight, and there were a group of students in a circle around them filming the fight. As I recall, Loudy they were on the floor, and he was slamming Lewis's head on the cement ground in the bathroom.
What was Mr. Harrison doing?
When I noticed that Mr. Harrison was in the bathroom, I just observed him looking at the fight, walking around the boys fighting. He was not speaking or attempting to break up the fight.
And what was his responsibility to do when there was a fight like that?
As far as I understood it, he was responsible for...
Your Honor,
Good. Ask another question.
What were you expecting Mr. Harrison to do in the bathroom?
objection.
Another question.
Did you ask Mr. Harrison anything?
After several seconds, I noticed that he was not attempting to break up the fight, so I remember asking him if he could use his radio to call again for assistance and have support come.
Did he do that?
From what I recall, he did raise his radio to his mouth, and I could see that he was speaking. I didn't hear what he said.
At some point, do you recall whether, while these two boys were fighting, what was Mr. Harrison generally doing?
He just appeared to be looking at them. I noticed he kind of walked around a little bit, but he didn't appear to be doing anything.
Did you hear him say anything?
No.
What happened after the fight?
I believe at some point the students got off the floor, Loudy and Lewis, and a student broke them up or was able to separate them. And at that point, I remember people arriving to break up the fight.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Hello.
You were standing outside your classroom when you saw Mr. Rodriguez walking away from your classroom, correct?
Yes.
And you expected him to be coming towards your classroom because he was supposed to have his third period English class with you, correct?
Yes.
And had you seen Mr. Harrison before you saw Mr. Rodriguez walking away from your classroom?
No.
Had you seen Mr. Harrison at all that morning before you saw Mr. Rodriguez walking away from your classroom?
I don't recall.
You don't know where Mr. Harrison was at the time Loudy shoved Mr. Rodriguez into that bathroom, do you?
No.
And that Loudy shoved Lewis into that bathroom, the door opened up right away, correct?
Yes.
The door was unlocked, correct?
Yes.
And that the doors were unlocked at that time, correct?
Yes.
And you came down the hallway and went past the bathroom, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question?
When you saw Loudy tackle Lewis into the bathroom, you then came down past the bathroom, correct?
Yes.
And this button that you pushed, where exactly is that beyond the bathroom in the direction that you were going?
Beyond the bathroom, there's another turn that goes into another classroom, so it's just around the corner.
And just a few steps away, correct?
Yes.
Now, the next time you were seen in the video, you were seen to be coming back down from the same direction where you come from the first time? Did you go all the way around?
I got locked out once I pressed for assistance. To come back the easier or the quicker way, I was locked out, so I needed to go around.
So you did the circle, the square, so to speak.
Yes.
And Mr. Harrison came soon after you, isn't that right?
Yes.
You opened up the door and you're holding the door open to some extent, and Mr. Harrison comes by you fairly quickly after that, correct?
I mean, yes, he was right after me.
And he went straight into the bathroom, correct?
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, in the school at the time, there were police officers, correct?
Yes.
And this button that you pushed calls the police also, correct?
It calls the secretary who sends a call on the radio, and police sometimes respond, yes.
And the police are there to break up fights, right?
They can assist,
Mr. Harrison, you knew Mr. Harrison for a couple of months before this incident, correct?
yes.
And he was about 55 years old at the time?
Sure, if you say so.
Want to take my word for it?
I will.
He appeared that way in any case, right? In his 50s, correct?
Yes, he's a middle-aged man.
Right. And did you ever see the police arrive at the scene?
Yes.
Well, that part of the video that Mr. Bradley just showed you, you were walking away before any police or officers arrived in the bathroom, correct?
I don't recall.
But when do you recall seeing the police officers go into the bathroom?
I don't recall seeing them enter the bathroom. I believe that I had left before that happened.
In any case, these police officers they have the power of arrest, correct?
Yes.
And they don't carry guns in the school, do they?
No.
Do they have a baton perhaps, or some sort of self-defense weapons?
I'm not sure.
And as far as you know, they're trained as police officers, right?
I'm not aware of what their training is.
And you never saw them enter the bathroom to break up any fight, did you?
No.
When you were in the bathroom and you were observing Lewis and Loudy fighting, did you hear either one of them say anything?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradley.
Nothing further.
Thank you very much, your excuse. Will you announce the next witness, please?
Jose Nova. Where's this lady?
Just stand there, face the clerk, and raise your right hand, please.
Do solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to this court and the jury and the issue between the Commonwealth and the defendant shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Right this way.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, how you doing?
Sir, in a loud, clear voice, could you please introduce yourself to His Honor and the members of the jury, spelling your last name for the record?
Nova, Jose Nova,
How old are you, sir?
19.
Did you grow up in the city of Boston?
Yes,
At some point, did you attend English high school?
yes,
At some point, while you were at English high school, did you meet a gentleman by the name of Shaun Harrison?
yes,
You see him in the courtroom today?
I do.
Please point to him and describe an article of clothing he's wearing. Your Honor, may the record reflect he's identified the defendant?
What article of clothing do you see?
Gray shirt,
Gray shirt. Okay.
yes.
The record will reflect.
Sir, do you want to be here?
I don't.
Counsel?
I object to the question.
Stricken.
What year did you start at English high school?
Freshman year,
Did you have any friends at the school?
yes.
Who were your friends?
Kevin, Loudy, and Tyrese,
Do you know a gentleman by the name of Luis Rodriguez?
Lewis. Yes, I do.
Okay. And when did you meet Tyrese, Ludi, or Loudy, Kevin, and Lewis?
My first year there, freshman year.
And did you smoke marijuana back then?
Yes, I did.
did you first meet Mr. Harrison approximately?
I'm not sure.
At some point you did meet him, is that right?
Yes.
How did you meet him? First time you met him?
His office.
And why were you in his office, if you remember?
Guidance counts. For a guidance counselor.
Were you there for anger management classes?
Yes.
And how many weeks did you say you knew Mr. Harrison before Lewis got shot?
About 3 weeks. Probably.
Did he have a job title at the time? Or how did he introduce himself to you?
Just as Rev.
And how often would you meet with him regarding anger management?
Probably like 2 days a week, maybe.
What are the types of things that you would talk about?
Just school and yeah, pretty much that's it. School.
Did he at ever any point show any pictures on his phone to you?
Yes.
And what were those pictures of?
Guns.
Did he talk about what was the context of why he showed you those pictures of guns?
I don't remember.
Did he ever talk about catching bodies?
Objection, over the question.
Yes. No, I'll allow it. You may answer that question, sir.
Can you say it again?
Sure. Did he ever talk to you about catching bodies?
No, he didn't.
I'm sorry?
No, he didn't.
Did
I don't
anybody,
remember.
any one of your friends ask him about catching bodies?
Yes.
What was his response?
Yes.
And what did that mean to you?
They had killed someone.
Do you remember who asked him that question?
Kevin.
Did he tell you how many bodies he caught?
About 10.
Is that when he showed you the pictures of the gun on the phone?
No, the picture on the phone was maybe another time.
Okay. What did the guns look like?
I don't know, a rifle maybe?
And what kind of phone did he have?
I don't remember.
When may I approach?
Ready?
So I'm going to show you a document here, dated March 16th of 2015. Is your name on the second page there?
Yes.
I'm just going to turn your attention to page 14. Lines 10 and 11, read that to yourself. Does that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
And what kind of phone did he have?
A smartphone.
In your presence, I'm sorry, strike that. Did Mr. Harrison ever ask you to sell drugs?
No.
Remember being in Mr. Harrison's office?
Yes.
And do you remember a fight between Lewis and Loudy?
Yes.
And while you were in the office, did Rev ever ask you to sell drugs, if you recall?
Objection, asked and answered.
I'll allow him to. Go ahead. Finish the sentence.
While you were in the office, did Rev ever ask you to sell drugs?
No.
Do you remember being in the office with Lewis and Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Did Did Lewis ever show or pull out any marijuana?
Lewis, yes.
Okay, in what context did he do that? Can you describe what happened?
If I can remember, I'm pretty sure it was either in a baggie, I'm pretty sure, or a bottle.
And what size was the amount of marijuana that he pulled out?
I don't know, about 3 grams, 3 bags,
And what's that worth in street value? What would you call that?
$30.
I'm sorry?
Like $30?
Do you remember where Lewis pulled that out from?
His bag?
Do you remember what the container was that he had the marijuana in?
No, it was just a container.
And what happens after he pulls out the marijuana?
I don't remember.
I may approach?
You may.
Just, I'm going to show you grand jury minutes again, starting on line, page 17. Was there a conversation between Lewis and Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Okay, and just keep your voice up, sir.
Yes.
And at some point, does Lewis give anything to Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
What does he give him?
The money for the bud.
The money for the bud,
Yes.
meaning the marijuana?
Yes.
Did you see any other transactions between Lewis and Mr. Harrison?
No.
Did Mr. Harrison ever offer you marijuana?
Yes.
What was the context of that?
I don't remember.
I just may have a brief moment, Your Honor.
Show you the bottom of page 15, sir.
Yeah.
Just read that to yourself and look up when you're done.
Mr. Harrison asked you to do with the marijuana.
Sell it.
Did you?
No, I did not.
Now, were you present during the fight between Laudy and Lewis?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And after the fight happened, before the fight happened, was there any conversations by Mr. Harrison about the fight?
Objection.
Was there any
With who?
conversation?
Can we, time frame?
You may answer that question.
Can you say it again, please?
Sure. Prior to the fight between Laudy and Lewis, did you hear Mr. Harrison talking about Lewis?
No.
Did you have any conversations with Mr. Harris after the fight between Laudy and Lewis?
No.
Mr. Harrison ever show you marijuana?
Yes.
Describe what happened.
Pretty sure it was in a glasses case, and told me to sell it, and I told him that I'll come back another day.
Did he say anything to you about loyalty?
Yes.
What did he say to you?
Prove to me your loyalty.
After the fight between Loudy and Lewis, did Mr. Harrison talk about Lewis,
Objection, asked and answered.
if you remember?
After the fight, no. You may answer that question.
I don't remember.
Page 29.
29.
I'm going to back up a little bit to page 27, just take a few moments. This was talking about after the fight. Just read, keep reading. Just in the middle of the page there.
Okay.
That's it.
Was Mr. Harrison upset after the fight?
Yes.
What was he upset about?
Objection.
Well, good question. How's he know?
Was he saying anything to you?
That Lewis was making him hot.
Can I have that repeated, Your Honor? I'm awful sorry.
I think he said Lewis is making him hot. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Did Mr. Harrison say why Lewis was making him hot?
Objection.
Did he say why? You can answer that.
No.
Did Mr. Harrison ever say, if you remember, that Lewis was making him hot because of the marijuana?
Objection, Your Honor. Form of the question, if nothing else.
Sustained. You want to do something with the statement? Is
Yes.
it friendly?
Yes.
Feel free to do so.
Thank you. Did he was, Mr. Harrison was saying that Lewis was making him hot, correct?
Yes.
Did he at any point explain, or what was he talking about when he said that?
Objection.
And the he being Mr. Harrison.
If you know, what was the subject that he was speaking about?
I don't remember.
Page 29, sir.
Can we approach, Judge?
Yes.
So you've had a chance to take a look at the first 4 lines of that? Is that a yes, I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay, does that refresh your memory as to what Mr. Harrison was hot about, Lewis?
Yes, a little bit, yes.
Was it?
Marijuana.
Did he say did he say anything about Lewis, particularly in that context?
Something needs to be done.
Just may I have a brief moment?
Yes.
No further questions, thank you.
Mr. Bradley.
Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Bradley just showed you something that he said refreshed your memory about what Mr. Harrison was saying about Lewis and why he was hot, correct?
Yes.
This was immediately after Lewis and Loudy had been in a fight, correct?
Yes.
And when Mr. Bradley just showed you this document that refreshed your memory, it was from your grand jury testimony, correct?
Yes.
And your answer indicated that you were guessing that that's what he was talking about, correct?
No.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
So Mr. Bradley asked you a question. Was the Reverend upset about something in particular? That was the question, correct? Keep your voice up, please.
Yes.
And your answer was that Lewis was making him hot, I guess, about the marijuana selling, correct?
Yes.
Now, this conversation that you were having, this was sometime after the fight, correct?
Yes.
What time was it?
I'm not sure.
In any case, Kevin was present, correct?
Yes.
And Loudy was present, correct?
Yes.
And at some point, did Loudy leave?
I don't remember, no.
Well, while you were in that office and you were having this conversation with Mr. Harrison, yourself, Loudy, and Kevin, did you ever hear Shaun Harrison say to Kevin, I want you to shoot and kill Lewis?
No.
Did you ever hear Shaun Harrison say to Loudy, I want you to shoot and kill
No.
Lewis Rodriguez?
No.
Did you ever hear Shaun Harrison describe how he was going to meet Lewis Rodriguez that evening at the Mass Ave station and go on the Orange Line someplace and then shoot him in the back of the head?
No.
Now, when you left that meeting, you left with somebody, didn't you?
Kevin and Loudy?
You left with Kevin and Loudy.
Yes.
You said that you were in some sort of anger management program with Mr. Harrison, correct?
Yes.
When did you start that?
Freshman year?
Well, the freshman year was started probably in September, correct?
Yes.
Did you start in September with him?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Well, do you remember, I want you to assume for the sake of argument that Lewis was in this fight on March 3rd, 2015, okay? Now, yes, you have to speak up for the record.
Yes.
How long had you been seeing Mr. Harrison as part of your anger management prior to Lewis being in this fight with Loudy?
About 2 days.
3 days?
2?
2 days?
Yeah.
You've been to see him twice,
Yeah, in like a week.
and you met with him in his office for your anger management, correct?
Yes.
You never met in the cafeteria for anger management, did you?
No.
And you knew Kevin and Loudy and Tyrese and Lewis, they were all your friends, correct?
Yes.
And time of this, back in, this March of 2015, were you living in the Archdale area?
Archdale?
Archdale?
No.
Were you living in the same general area where Kevin and Loudy and Tyrese and Lewis were living?
No.
Where were you living?
I was living
3 years ago?
3 years ago.
You remember?
I was around Dorchester. I lived around Dorchester. Yeah.
And you knew these guys from school, right?
Yeah.
Do you describe one of these meetings you had with Mr. Harrison, about Mr. Bradley, about catching bodies, correct?
Yes.
And that conversation took, as you say, took place in Mr. Harrison's office?
Yes.
And there were other people present, you said, correct?
Yes.
And those people included Kevin,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Loudy?
Yes.
And it was at that time they took this phone out and showed you a picture of a rifle, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember when that meeting occurred in relationship to the fight that Lewis and Loudy had?
I don't.
And you remember it was Kevin who brought up the issue about asking Mr. Harrison if he ever caught any bodies?
Yes.
So Kevin started that conversation.
Yes.
And do you remember how long that conversation went on?
I don't.
Do you remember if Kevin ever asked Mr. Harrison, supposedly he's just said he's killed 10 people, did Kevin ever ask him how he got away with it?
No, I don't remember.
Or what kind of weapons he used, or how he did it?
No, I don't remember.
At any time that you were in Mr. Harrison's office with Kevin, did you ever see Mr. Harrison produce a knife?
No, I did not.
Whether Kevin was present or not, did you ever see Mr. Harrison produce a knife in his office?
I did not.
And when you first met Mr. Harrison, were both Kevin and Loudy present for that?
I don't remember.
Well, when you first met Mr. Harrison, were Loudy and Kevin both present in his office at that first time you met him?
I don't remember.
Page 11, Mr. Brett.
May I, Your Honor? I'm going to show you page 11 of your transcript of your grand jury testimony, correct?
Yes.
And this describes when you first met Mr. Harrison, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you were asked by Mr. Bradley, where did this take place? And you said inside his office, correct?
Yes.
And you were then asked by Mr. Bradley, who else was there when this happened, correct?
Yes.
And you said Loudy and Kevin, correct?
Yes.
It's pretty much true every time you saw Mr. Harrison in his office, either
Loudy or Lewis or Kevin was present?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Any further questions?
No, Your Honor.
You're excused. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
I understand this is the last witness for the day?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Jurors were leaving a little bit early. And I want to again caution you from having any contact with any fact, issue, or party involved in this case. If there's anything in the news, please avoid it. Please don't talk about this case with anyone, including among yourselves. And please resist the temptation to do any of your own individual private research or investigation into any fact or circumstance of the case. Thank you for your patience, jurors, and thank you for your time. See you tomorrow morning.
All rise. Jurors, they can no path to chair. Step down and follow me, please.